Today, we are back at John Koofleitner's to take a closer look at this King of the Road icon, 1968 Shelby GT500KR. But before we take the tour, if you're new to the channel, if this is your first time checking out the channel, welcome. You've hit the gold mine. This channel, we feature cars off the beaten path. We cover the classics, vintage, some exotics, lots of orphan cars. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Let's talk 1968 Mustang lineup. The Mustang was offered in 3 body styles: coupe, convertible, fastback, with engine sizes ranging from a 200 cubic inch displacement inline 6-cylinder all the way up to a 428 cubic inch displacement V8. And then there was the Shelbys. In 1968, the Shelby Mustang came in 2 body styles, convertible or fastback, with 3 different flavors. The GT350 came with a 306 horsepower, 302 cubic inch displacement V8. In the middle was the GT500. It produced 335 horsepower from a 428 cubic inch displacement V8. At the top, our car, GT500KR. The KR stood for King of the Road. It made 400 horsepower from a 427 Cobra Jet. But we'll get into all the numbers in a minute. We're not going to get into all the numbers for all the lesser GTs, like the GT500 and GT350. We'll hit that in another day. We're just going to focus on the GT500KR for this episode, but I just wanted to mention those.
What's with the Shelby?
Cars were named after ex-race car driver, one of the best salespeople on the planet, all-around Texas badass, Carroll Shelby. We could literally be here all day talking about the accomplishments of this one man and all the success that he brought to Ford. He was the one who created the fastback Mustang. Without Carroll Shelby, Mustang wouldn't be half, probably wouldn't even be anything of what we remember it for today. In his words, the original Mustang, the coupe, was a secretary's car. He turned it into a performance car. You have Carroll Shelby to thank for that.
The man, Carroll Shelby, engineer, race driver. The car, the Shelby Mustang GT.
To build my kind of car, I had to take an existing car and modify it. I could have chosen any set of wheels I wanted. I picked Mustang. Mustang is styled right, lean and strong looking, not fat and round. And Mustang has that long list of features and options. I'll tell you, when it comes to imitations, I've seen some, but competition for the original, I haven't seen any. Only Mustang makes it happen. These aren't just words, it's a fact.
Let's talk specs of the GT500KR. It was 181.6 inches long, 68.2 inches wide, 51.8 inches tall, 108 inches was the wheelbase that it rode on. It was complete steel unibody construction, meaning it didn't have a frame underneath it, so that's what made it so light. The weight is 2,789 pounds. 0 to 60, 6.5 seconds. Price was $4,500, which is equivalent to you spending $38,951.81 today, which is a bargain because I always thought that these things cost around $60,000 equivalent. Ford production numbers in 1968. Total GT500KR production was 1,540 units, of which 517 were convertibles, 1,053 were fastback. This number could possibly be higher if the GT500KR came out midway through 1968. This number could possibly be higher if it came out at the beginning of the year, but all these other cars like the Camaro was coming out with their performance model, and Firebird, they had a performance model by this time, and Shelby just wanted to say that this was the best of the best out there. And it's really sad, really, because this is as good as it ever got when Shelby built the cars back in the 60s. Because after this, Ford started building the Shelbys under the Shelby name, but in the Ford factory. This was the last year that Shelby had a hand in it. This is as good as it got, was this model here. So it's kind of like an end of an era. Moving on to the engine specs. This engine is a 428 cubic inch displacement, 7 liters for you metric folks. Cobra Jet. Horsepower. Some sources peg this at 335 horsepower. The book of classic cars says it's more closer to 400 horsepower, and that is even a lower figure. I've seen figures as high as 500 horsepower for this car. Bore is 4.1 inches, stroke is 4 inches, compression is 10.7 to 1. Has 5 main bearings, 2 valves per cylinder, wrapped in a cast iron block, fed through a Holley 4-barrel 750 CFM carburetor. The transmission could be one of 2 different transmissions: heavy-duty C6, which was a 3-speed transmission, or a 4-speed manual top loader. Shelby Mustang features no less than 30 modifications to the original Mustang design. Some key differences include the Lucas fog lamps, fiberglass hood, dual air scoops, air extractors on the rear quarters, they actually work, and a fiberglass deck lid. All right, let's talk about this door panel. So just check this out. So this is what I meant by Mustangs are all framed out. That's what framed out window means. Just notice, look at it, it's all trimmed out. This is the door lock. That's locked, unlocked. Door handle, armrest. This is the door handle to get out. Window crank for the big window. Vent windows. This is to operate the mirror. It's got sort of like this dummy mirror kind of thing going on where you could move it from the control here. So just check out the back seat. Also, a lot of people don't notice this, but these vents are functional. You can allow air in here just by opening or closing the vents. The seat can be folded down in the back if you don't want it to look, if you want it to look like a 2-door or a 4-seat car. Here's the vents, totally functional like we showed in the inside. All right, moving on to all the button switches and knobs. I apologize, this is a little bit darker than I wanted it to be. I couldn't make it any brighter. All the way to the left-hand side, heat, temperature, defrost are the climate controls. The dial above it controls the blower or the fan speed. My footage was so bad with the gauges because it was so dark and my camera was maxed out on aperture. I couldn't make it any brighter than it was, and I figured I could edit it after the fact, but I was wrong. We're going to start with, there's 5 gauges ahead of the driver, and we're going to start with the smaller gauges and then talk about the bigger gauges. So all the way to the left is the gasoline gauge, in the middle is the clock, over to the right hand side is the temperature, and then there's 2 big pods that sit in front of the driver. The one left hand side is the speedometer, has a odometers at the top and tripometers at the bottom. Tachometer is off to the right hand side, and notice it says RPM times 100 instead of times 1,000. Windshield wipers are right here at the top. It was always a weird spot for them, and I'm pretty sure they're electric unit, 2 speeds, slow and fast. They just put the slit in here to make it symmetrical, but I don't think that does anything. Moving to the center of the dash, there's the radio with the radio controls. Just below it is the oil pressure gauge and the alternator gauge. These are what the keys look like. They're just like regular Ford keys. Notice the reversible keys, meaning you could put it in either way, which is a pretty big deal for a 60s car. Because I had a 67 Mustang, and I remember that. I had a Carmen Ghia too as well, and the Carmen Ghia key only goes in one way, whereas this will go in either way. The ignition switch is right here. So that's one way, and you can flip the key over and it'll go in this way too. Ashtray is located right there. Cigarette lighter is right here. It's got the radio. Mine had an 8-track player. The headlights are right here. So, parking lights, headlights. Right off to the right-hand side of the key ignition switch is the fog lights. Over the hood impression, that's what it looks like over the hood. Here's what I look like. The roof is kind of small, but I have big hair, to be honest. So there's adequate headspace. Hair is starting to hit the top of the roof a little bit, but there's lots of room underneath the steering wheel, and this perfect driving position. You sit in this car, not on it. All right, coming back to the trunk section. These are full size, or this is a full size spare. So like it's a small trunk, but it's big in the same sense that you could fit a full size spare in the back. This is where the gas goes. On then to the pros and cons. I am getting all these pros and cons from the complete book of collectible cars, Blue Chip Auto Investments, 70 Years from 1930 to 2000 by Richard M. Langworth and the Auto Editors of Consumer Guide. On the pros side, staggering big block acceleration. 67 is the last Shelby built Mustangs. I always thought it was 68, so that's a correction. Distinctive styling, open air appeal of the 68 convertibles, excellent parts and service support through strong national club support. On the cons side, staggering big block axle tramp, more common than concurrent GT350s, though they're not cheaper, less semi-race machine, and more luxury tourer than early Shelbys. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. If you like the content, give us a like. Share the content with anybody that you know that is into classic automobiles. And we made a Facebook group called What It's Like. I'll put the link in the description. It gives you the opportunity to share your rides on there. If you want to contact me, that is the best way to get a hold of me, is join the Facebook group. Facebook's kind of like my platform outside of YouTube. I don't do email that well, but I can put my email in the description as well. All right, guys. Till next time. Toodaloo!